Jason Harper. Okay, we'll give a charge, and then we'll introduce him right, okay? 1, 2, 3. Charge! All right. The greatest team in America, I bring you Jason Harper!
You trained him so well. It is good to be here. I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. All of this place, you've been sitting for just a minute. We had a break, but I'm asking you to stand up. We're going to start with a little experiment. I'm going to prove something to you to be right. Everybody stand up. Get a little bit of space if you can. I know we're crowded. What you're going to do is have to stagger yourselves a little bit, because in a moment I'm going to ask you to just to put your arms out just like this. I'm going to count to 3. You're going to clap your hands, and when you do so, you're going to follow my lead very carefully. Now here's what's going to happen. Watch closely. I'm going to count to 3. You're going to clap your hands. You're going to interlock your fingers just like this, but don't do it until I say 3. And then, once you've interlocked your fingers, do not let go. Hold them right there. I'm going to tell you what psychologists say about you in the way that you interlock your fingers. Here we go. Arms out on the count of 3. Don't hit anybody in the head. This is your opportunity to just really slap someone silly. Here you go. 1, 2, 3. Clap them and hold them together. Okay, now here's what psychologists say. Does anybody here, holding your hand together, is anybody's right thumb overlap their left thumb? Anybody? Raise your hands up like that. Okay, here's what psychologists say about you. According to psychologists, they say if your right thumb is overlapping your left thumb, you think you are better looking than everybody else in this entire room. That's what it says. That's what it says. Now, hold on. Hold the hands together. Now, how many have your left thumb over your right thumb? Is that you? Hold up your hands. You believe, according to psychologists, that you're smarter than everybody else in the entire room. That's what they say. No kidding. Now, there's a rarity. There's a small group, only 4% of you, maybe statistics won't play out here. How many's hands are parallel? You locked your fingers and left did not cross over right. They're totally parallel. Is there anybody here who did that? One person in the back. What is your name, sir? Gonzalo. That's his name, Gonzalo. That tells you about this. It says that if you have parallel thumbs, you think that you're smarter and better looking than everybody in the room. Hey, let's give it up for him in the back. Would you do that all over this place? Go ahead and be seated. And you can unlock your fingers. You don't have to sit like that, I'll tell you. My name's Jason Harper, and I tell you, it's just a privilege to be here to speak to you today. Gary and I have had the privilege of working together, as stated earlier, on numerous projects, and I really count him to be a dear friend, but also a mentor to me. And so it's an honor just for he and I to be able to be at IMS and to talk to you. But I'll tell you, a little bit different approach. You got both of us, and both of our redeeming passions are that we go full throttle, full time, full tilt. And I'll just tell you that I have like one gear, it's on, and it's full throttle. So I'm going to move fast and try to just tell you a narrative today about some things that I really believe in. The goodness about today is that I'm not going to have to package up any type of concepts that I've read about or concepts that I've gone to school about. I just have the privilege today to tell you a couple stories about my own life. I just have the opportunity to tell you about my own dream. Because as Gary talked about passion, I'd like you to think of passion to be the fruit or the root system that goes deep into the ground. The passion that he talked about is the roots that tap deep below the surface and systemically brings growth and nutrients to the life and the tree that you are. But I would tell you your dream is the fruit of the tree. So often we want to have the fruit on the tree, but we don't have the root systems to sustain that. So as passion would be the root system today in the second session, I want to talk to you about just the power of a dream and how it becomes the fruit of your life. I think what's so amazing about a dream in its simplest definition is a dream would be what you would do if would have and could have failed is not an option. Essentially, as stated, what would your dream be if there was no fear of failure? What would your dream be if you could not fail at it? Better yet, what if you took time off the table? What if you took money off the table and you sat there and said, I have a dream? It was August 28th, 1963. It was the Lincoln Monument, the Lincoln Memorial, and there was a speech that was given on a civil rights movement. How many are aware of the speech that I'm talking about? Martin Luther King stood in front of a nation and he says, I have a Over 200,000 people heard that speech that day, millions more in the years to come. And I will tell you, what made that speech so powerful was not that he orated so splendidly or that he had significance in bringing the country together. It wasn't that he was such a poetic speaker. I don't believe that's what captured the hearts of every listener for generations to come. No, what I believe made that speech so powerful was that he got in and he connected not only to your conscience, but he connected to your intellect. Because I operate today from a predisposition that every one of you, the one thing we have in common, regardless of how old we are or how young we are, regardless of our upbringing or our lack of upbringing, every one of us was wired with a predisposition to dream. He had a keyboard that he was looking out to. If it were today, around each one of our necks is a keyboard. And before the foundations of the earth, the Creator had the ability to go in and to type on the keyboard around your neck and pre-program you to dream. You were given the desire and the God-given ability to dream. So when Martin Luther King stood up there, generations removed have heard the speech, I have a dream, and immediately the internal DNA of your destiny comes alive. All of a sudden, that resonates within you. All of a sudden, you listen a little bit more acutely because something in you, like a child, just wants to dream. The passion is the root system. The dream is the fruit system. And in your life, in your desires, in your destinies, you have the ability to create and to conceive and to construct a dream. The problem is, so often in our lives, we've lost the ability to dream. I will tell you, sometimes I don't dream because I fear what others may think of my dream. I have some audacious ideas. Gary mentioned writing them down. I will write down some chicken scratch that I dreamed in the middle of the night, waking up to only realize it looks like hieroglyphics. I will write it down, and in the middle of the night, boy, it was like the cure for cancer. And then I woke up the next morning and I'm like, what was that? And there will be other nights when I wake up and I'll jot down some ideas. I won't even remember them, and I'll wake up the next morning, and because of a dream, I have unlocked the myth of how I can motivate a generation to change the world. What would your dream look like if you were just to dream? I think so key, a dream of a person is what ultimately drives a person. I can tell you, as a person, I am highly driven because I dream. When you find someone who lacks drive, you might find someone who lacks dreams. And I'm not just talking about the workplace. I was given full permission because of Roy to talk about your life, not only in the context of who you are as an individual, but more importantly, who you are as a family outside of the workplace, the dreams that are happening outside. You have a company, you have a culture and a community here that is trying to cultivate in you a desire to dream outside of work. That this place represents, I know the stories firsthand that people have come here and have found a dream of stability for the first time in their life. This company has become the bedrock of people to come in and for the first time to find a season of sobriety because of the great work environment right here in this workplace. But what's so incredible about IMS is it's not just about IMS, it's about outside of here. What can this company and culture do to cultivate your dreams to succeed beyond the company? I have a friend of mine who has a company. They're a business consultants group. They're based in the Midwest. And it's a company about this size. And he states very clearly that his only desire as the CEO is to make the dreams of his employees come true outside of the workplace. Yes, we do business consulting, but that's completely secondary to what we do as a company outside as individuals. My only desire as the CEO is to find out what your dream is outside of the workplace and how to make it come true. I mean, that's crazy. I'd like to work at that company. I'd say, I want a Lamborghini. I want a monthly trip to Tahiti. Just go on. And they go, well, that's our job. Our job here is to make that happen. You want a Lamborghini? Work harder, work more hours. We pay you overtime. You make more money. We produce. You win. And no. But the reality is that they often sit down about once every 3 to 4 weeks. They sit down of an employee group of about 60 people, and they sit in a circle. And it is the most anticipated hour or two of the entire work week. Everybody comes in and it's like popcorn. They've got their sodas and popcorns and they're sitting in a circle and they cannot wait for this time. They sit down, they're all in a circle, and they go, okay, we're starting over here, you ready? Go. And that person has 30 seconds to talk about not only their dream, but the steps they're taking to make it come true. At first, they had to pull teeth. What's your dream? They're like, I want to be the PTO at my kid's school. That lady talks crap about me, and I'll never get past her. She's moody, she's this, and the PTO's clicky, and they're this. I have a dream to change all that. And they're like, okay, next dream. And they move down the line. What's your dream? And one guy goes, well, I don't know anything about baseball, but my kid likes baseball. And I someday want to be my son's Little League coach. And they're like, oh. And then it got down, and someone goes, well, I've got a dream. I have a dream to someday go to Mount Everest. They're like, now we're getting some dreams here. What about your dream? I have a dream to someday live debt-free where my house is totally paid for. I have a dream, and they went around the room, and they got to this one lady. She goes, I have a dream. It's not Mount Everest, and it's not living debt-free forever. It's just that my daughter and I have just recently been reconciled, and well, growing up, before we had our splitting of ways, we dreamed she was a little girl, as her mom, that someday we would go to Paris and see the Eiffel Tower. And now that we've reconciled, I just have a dream to take a 1 or 2 week vacation to Paris. Everybody just kept going around the room. No one even registered, so she thought. They got back to their office cubicles, and someone sent out a blind email to everybody saying, hey, I've got some frequent airline miles that I believe are enough to get her and her daughter to Paris. Does anybody else have any resources to help? Someone sent back, my great-grandmother owns a house in France, and it's outside of Paris where she could stay rent-free. Someone else says, I'll take up a collection of some gift cards so that she won't have to spend her own money on food. Within a week, by the time they got back to their next dream circle, they were able to sit there unbeknownst to this woman and say, hey, we just want to let you know dreams do happen. Next week, fully paid, you and your daughter are going to Paris. And this lady sat there with her mouth dropped. She was stunned as tears went down her face because she knew it wasn't about a vacation. It was about the heart of a mother being reconciled to a daughter. What would happen in a company if that lady comes back from Paris? You think she's going to be lazy? You think she's going to complain? So-and-so didn't get back to me on that email. No, she's come back going, I'm so glad to work here. Thank you so much. Do you have some more coffee? Hey, can I clean up your... I mean, she is like highly motivated. They didn't have to take a dime of work money for this woman to take it to a next. Why? Because dreams has that ability. So a few years ago, I started to dream. I started to dissect apart what I believe to be my greatest dream. I looked at it from so many different avenues. I got to tell you, I just confessed from the beginning, I have a binder that was purchased at Walmart. It's like a journal. And can I hold this up for just a second? It's like this right here. And it's bound, and it's got blank pages. And I'm a prolific tearer-outer of articles, pictures, places, things, ideas that I come across in newspapers. And I tear them out, and I cut out pictures, and I cut out places, and I cut out people, and I put them in, and I tape them in my little dream journal. And I build that dream journal, and then I go back a year from now, and I look back over the pages, and I find out what is coming to fruition and what has grown stale or stagnant. It's a good way to determine what is really a dream and what is just a passing vision. So a couple years ago, I started looking through my dream journal of pictures and places and things that I had collected. If money and time were no object, and if would have failed and could have failed was not on the table, I looked at my journal and I found out that there were 3 compelling components that were woven through all of my dreams. It was a weird thing, and I don't expect these to be your dreams. I'm just telling you my dreams. The first was, what would it look like if all of my dreams were wrapped around this word called empathy? Empathy is being able to see the world through someone else's eyes. It was weird. I was looking at my dreams and why I wanted to go to certain places, and I realized that these different things would take place if I attached myself to empathy. I thought, you know what? Maybe the Creator, maybe this God concept in my life would really help me get to my dream if it wasn't just about me. Empathy was in that company corporate climate that saw the daughter and mother reconciling, and there was a daughter and a mother that felt that, and they thought, I could give to that because I want her. They empathized with her. I looked at my dream journal, I flipped through, and empathy was a key component, but the other key component that was resonating through my dreams was compassion. I noticed that I just have a tendency to be a compassionate person. I look at people and I see their plight, and my heart hurts for them. Maybe it's because a few years ago, more than almost 20 now, Jeremy and I, in the back row there, he and I got on a plane and we flew to India together and spent nearly a month on the ground in Calcutta, India. And I learned about compassion firsthand. When I watched that gentleman in the video putting rocks on top of his head, my heart hurt. When I saw him walking across, how many felt something inside of you hoping he didn't trip, fall, or fall off the little plank? Did any of you feel that? Raise your hand. You have empathy and compassion. When he was throwing him up, I felt myself kind of from the back row trying to get him up on his... You did too. I watched you from the back. When he started walking across the plank, I watched a few of your arms go out and you're like, you were empathizing and you were compassionate. And when I add these two words up, empathy and compassion, the byproduct of those two words working together is change. I have this audacious dream that I believe singularly you and I have the ability to change the world. I know that sounds like a pie in the sky thought and theory, but I have the ability to believe that if I live an empathetic life, a compassionate life, I actually have the ability to change the world. When I say the world, I don't mean a political system. I don't mean a climate of politicism. I don't mean a geographic location as the world. I mean that whoever I am standing in front of at that moment is the world to me. I want to change the world. That's my dream. I believe that when you take your dream as a little pebble and you throw it out into the rock of audacious belief, it'll create ripples and effects that will transform everything. You have the ability to change the world. Please do not dummy down your dreams for anybody. You have the ability. Right here in this place, you have the ability through your electrical work to absolutely change the world. For there is somebody somewhere who does not know how to figure out the electrical equation, but you have the answer. And it might just happen that you stumble across their path. I'm going to tell you what happens today when you dream. Empathy and compassion creates a very dangerous situation. In a sense, as I look through empathy and compassion, I thought about children, because children so often are the ones who are parts of nightmares and not dreams. And I took all of my thoughts and beliefs and I narrowed them down to a single statement that my dream is to secure equal education for every child. I just have this notion that where a child goes to school should not determine the level of education they get. For me, just my dream, where a child is educated should not determine whether a child is educated. The chasm between the education systems from those who are haves and those that are have-nots are huge. A child who is in urban areas should have not a lesser opportunity than someone who's in a suburban area. So I have a desire to see an equal education for every child, so I started to dream. A friend of mine in 2005, we sat down and we started to nurture this dream. Gary had a front row to some of these dialogues. It was 2005, it was January, and we were talking about an inner city school we had just heard about in the news. They said is the most underperforming school in all of Sacramento County. They said that the principal, in 9 years, they had 9 different principals. Over 50% turnover in these children's lives every year. Imagine a child showing up every fall, looking at the principal and knowing the next year it would be another principal. They had a teacher and that teacher would be gone. They said in this area, the specific area of circumference of zip code, they said that there were more predators and violent criminals within a 2 square mile of this school than all of Sacramento County combined. Empathy, compassion, change. My friend says to me just on a whim, he's like, man, you got to think these kids need to realize that education is kind of like running. He says it's not a sprint for them to the end of the school year, it's a sprint for them to the end of high school graduation. He says off the cuff, totally whimsical, he goes, yeah, we ought to run a marathon for them. Now I got to just confess to you, I am not a runner. I hate running, but I do run. And I was the fat, chubby little kid in PE who refused to run the mile and never dressed out for PE. Not that you were fat and chubby, but how many hated running the mile when you were in PE? Raise your hand. Yeah, that was me. And so when he said run a marathon, I thought he was smoking crack. I said, I don't run. And he goes, no, it'll be fun. We'll go online and we'll download a little 18 training week program. And hey, go online real quick and see if there's a marathon sometime 18 weeks from now. So I got online, I searched it out, and sure enough, it was January. In the middle of April, there was a marathon called the Big Sur International Marathon. I thought, hey, Carmel, Monterey, it's a beautiful place to run. Okay, let's run on behalf of inner city kids. We talked to some of our friends and we said, hey, would you pledge per mile? If I run a mile, you can give $1. If I don't finish the race, this was the dumbest decision I ever made. I said, if I don't finish the race, you don't have to give a dime to the cause. All of your pledges are based on me having an official finish. Ding. My friends are like, he's the laziest guy I ever met. I got 100 on Harper not finishing. All of their pledges became hedge bets. It was as if they were wondering and waiting for me to drop out. We trained 18 weeks. I didn't miss a single training. I was excited. We showed up on the race day, and they had this big banner that says, the Big Sur International Marathon, the hardest marathon in North America, rated by Runner's World magazine. And I thought, what did we get ourselves into? They said, but it's beautiful. We have a piano player at the halfway point. I'm like, who's listening to a piano player? So we run the race, and I start up Hurricane Point. If you've ever been down to Carmel and Monterey, halfway between Carmel and Monterey, there's this big, huge climb. I start running it. I get to Hurricane Point. I go up it. I'm coming down the other side of it. I'm at mile 16. I'm doing pretty good. I'm feeling pretty good. And what's going through my mind is there's about $20,000 in pledges on hold waiting for the kids to secure an equal education. $20,000. My friends wanted to see me fail. It was awesome. I came into the 16.4 mile marker, and that's when the hill started. I went up the first hill, it felt pretty good. I went down the second hill, and I felt something in my left knee begin to twitch and tear. Instantly, it began to swell up, and my current and consistent stride very quickly turned into a Frankenstein shuffle. I found out later I tore my meniscus in my left knee. I literally drug it out the last 10 miles to finish at 5 hours and 28 minutes, 2 minutes ahead of the official cutoff. I hobbled around, took an official check with my friend to the school, and walked in and said, here's $20,000. I won't walk for 3 months, but get something good for the kids. They bought some backpacks for the kids. They put a gate around the school in the back so kids couldn't come in. They put a security system in. It was an amazing thing to see these children for the first time believe that someone had not forgotten that they were there. I wish I could tell you that that's where the dream ended, but something started to stir deep inside of me. The principal came back to me and he says, hey, you gonna run another marathon? I said, are you kidding? Never. 3 weeks later, as I was training for another marathon, I ran a couple more the next couple years. People started to come to the school and get behind the vision. You see, that's what the dream does. When someone sees or hears about a dream, it becomes contagious. If you don't write anything down, write this down. My dream is contagious for somebody else. Someone will see your dream, your situation, and they will become motivated by that. I am driven because I dream. So here we are, 3 marathons later. More people are now running. I had a group of about 9 or 10 people out running with me to do a marathon. Some were training for the half, and all of a sudden we have this little running group. The kids walk up to me after school and they're like, hey, we think it's really cool what you're doing. They saw someone was willing to dream for them. But after 3 years, I can tell you, these are some things that happened, but this last one is what concerned me. I went up to the principal and I said, how many of your children here on this campus do you believe have access to health care? He looked at me as if I had asked an alien question. He said, health care? These kids? I don't know. He opened up the medical box of all 542 students, and one by one, we went through the student emergency box, and we found out that only 12% of the children were enrolled in health care. So I got this harebrained idea. It was one that I'd written down in the middle of the night. I'd said, well, let's see. Gary works with dentists, and I was working with him at the time. I said, we can get some dentists on board. What if I were to get 100 dentists to adopt 4 or 5 kids at the school? And what if I were to get 100 doctors to pick 4 or 5 kids? What would happen? I could get 100 doctors, 100 dentists. Every child could be covered with health care. We wouldn't have to rely on any systems or strategies. And, well, how am I going to bring awareness to this? So I got this harebrained idea. I know, I'll run 100 miles. So I went into my boss, the one who had got me into running the first marathon, and I go, guess what? I'm going to run 100 miles. And just like I had asked him if he was on crack about a marathon, he looks at me and says, are you on crack? 100 miles? Are you kidding? How would you do that? I go, I'm not sure yet, but I'm highly motivated. I just found out that only 12% of the kids have school, and I start going through it. If we get 100 doctors and 100 dentists, this is my dream. I wake up in the middle of the night thinking about this. I have a dream. I want to get a new fishing boat. That's a good dream, but it's not my dream. My dream has to have empathy and compassion and change attached to it. I've got but one life to live. I'm going to live it full tilt. So I lined up at my daughter's school up in El Dorado Hills, where she has this great suburban education. We'd ramped it out around the city. Warren, you remember this time. Ramped it out around the city, comes down El Dorado Hills, down basically Folsom Boulevard, if you're familiar with the area, out to West Sacramento, around Rayleigh Field, over through West Sacramento, Truxell Road, around Arco, out to the Garden Highway, all the way around that golf course, way out there, underneath the freeway, that's the one, all the way around that one. Take a right on another road that's out there, all the way up to Highway 99, across Highway 99 into North Sacramento, take a right. Wow. I started doubting my dream. I started going, this is impossible. I can't do this. I can't do this. Kids started putting up posters around the school. Going to the doctor. Going to the doctor. My friends started manipulating me. They started taking pictures of uninsured kids and making mile markers. Mile 1, mile 2, mile 3. They went out on the course and they would hold these markers up. As I would pass mile 3, there was this little girl with her face like this, just going, just one more mile. I realized somewhere around mile 62, I didn't have to run 100. I just had to run 100 miles or 1 mile 100 times. I just kept running 1 mile by 1 mile. That's a note for you on your dreams. You realize dreams are accomplished through micro goals. Micro goals. I don't have to take the big picture and eat the whole elephant. I just have to take one bite at a time. I don't have to run 100 miles. I just have to run 1 mile 100 times. The wheels came off the wagon. It was the heat, I think. You see, I had hoped for a nice foggy day, but I wanted exposure. Monday of that week, I was running on Friday. Monday of that week, I was running on Thursday. Monday of that week, it was overhaze, May 14th. I was like, this is great. Forecasting for the week, cloudy. I like it. I woke up Tuesday to a little bit of a fog in that May. I was like, yeah, it'll burn off later. It'll be probably a balmy 75. Wednesday, something happened with the jet stream. Not quite sure, but it got hot. By Wednesday, it was 96 degrees, and they go, hey, it's a heat wave projected for 109 on Friday. 109, are you kidding me? 2008, May 17th, it was the hottest day on record in the history of Sacramento for that day. Topped out at 108. We had one news person show up to the beginning. They're like, hey, we're up running for this kid. It's a nice little human feel-good story. By the time the temperature started going up at noon and I'm still running down Folsom Boulevard, they're like, hey, here we are, noon, running, watching this guy. It's 106. He's still running. By the 5 o'clock news, every news agency in Sacramento was out there going, yeah, he's still running. By the next morning, when I'm going like this, Live Copter 3's over and they're going, he's running. It's 105 yesterday. Unbelievable. People started to listen and watch and listen to this dream. Who is this idiot that's running? And I will tell you, when they asked the question, I said, I am an idiot who is absolutely crazy for these children who have never been to a doctor or a dentist. How can we live in the richest country in the world and there's a child that doesn't go to the doctor or dentist? Are you kidding me? This is my child. I hear people go, that ain't my kid. I ain't worried about it. It's a child. A child didn't get to choose where they were born or who they were born to. Their parents may make bad decisions, but that's not what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about a kid. We finished it, and I remember turning down in Oak Park on the 24th Avenue. The school was less than a block away. And I could hear over my headphones that were blaring the hardest death metal I could think of to rally my soul. It's like, jug, 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 jug. And then in the background, I could hear them playing U2's It's a Beautiful Day. I'm like, no, it's not. I'm hot and tired. The kids are cheering. It was as if it went into slow motion. I turned the corner down the last alley, and as I turned the corner, my heart rate, which had been at about 120 for the whole run, had shot up to 190, the peak of my ceiling of my workout. I was hyperventilating. So I stop right before the turn. I peek around the corner, and I see 500 children from the school. I see their parents. I see neighborhoods. They're chanting, here comes hope. Here comes hope. Tell me that's not worth going after. I'm looking at it. I say an explicit to the guy with me. I said, forget it, is the edited version. Let's go. My heart had peaked out. I turned the corner, and I'm telling you, it was as if I was sprinting down through the Boston Marathon final. I watched it back on video. I'm going like this. It's hardly a sprint. But I'll tell you what, in my mind, it was like the chariots of fire. I was running with great form. I crossed over the finish line, and this kid walks up to me and goes, "When's our running group start, sir?" I don't even remember answering him. But a week later, he says, "So I'll see you in August at the running group." Now, I guess had I played chess for 100 hours, we had had a chess club, but because we ran, they wanted a running club. So we showed up that following August with 82% of the kids enrolled in healthcare. Parents started coming out to the family barbecue, 1,000 people coming out for this thing. We started having kids being tutored in literacy and getting them to read, and had weekly on-campus tutors. We had this crazy thing happen where we were providing groceries to the children every Friday. 2 tons of food were showing up on the campus because the kids were going home hungry. We found out many of the kids early in this time when we were in the campus, they'd get in trouble on purpose on Friday to get suspended to go to the school on Saturday because they knew that they would get a meal on Saturday. If that doesn't move you, I'm challenged by that. So I'm like, what? So I said to my friend Michelle, who was working with me, I said, "We just need to get them food." And she's like, "Okay." I go, "Go find food." She's like, "Okay." It's a bag of groceries, Jason, for 500 kids. I go, "Yeah, 4 or 5 pounds per kid, a couple thousand pounds every Friday. We can do it." And here's what's crazy. Those that work with me, they actually believed it. They're like, "Okay, we'll be right back." And they went out. When you dream, it becomes contagious. People start to dream. We talked to the Sacramento Valley Food Bank and Family Services. They're like, "You want how much food?" I'm like, "Well, 500 bags of groceries every Friday." And the guy on the other end, he goes, "That's the most crazy thing I've ever heard." And I go, "Oh." He goes, "What time do you want them delivered?" So noon on Friday. Groceries were showed up in these big bins. We started utilizing the parents in the local community to go to the food bank to start packing the groceries, so we were empowering them rather than just enabling them. Parents were coming to pass out backpacks full of groceries. Kids were going home with sustainable calories over the weekend. It was the most crazy thing. Empathy and compassion equals change. 3 quick thoughts. The first is to give yourself. If you're going to dream, how about dreaming in such a way that you give yourself to a cause that's bigger than you? Give yourself to a cause that's bigger than you. Somehow, some way, look out into the world and say, how can I change through empathy and compassion and give myself to a cause that's bigger than me? Second is practicing inclusion. What would a dream look like if we practice inclusion? Meaning we're willing to help people who don't live on our street. We're willing to help people who don't look like, talk like, act like, think like, or believe like me. They don't even have to vote like me. I just want to help a child who's hungry. The third is I actually have this audacious belief that I could leave the world better than I found it. At the end of my day, if nobody shows up to my funeral and the place is empty, I just want one person, and it might just be Gary, who goes, "He left the world better." I'll take it. I won. I've never met anybody at the end of their days go, "How many more zeros did I have after my bank account?" Never. But I've met people go, "That guy was a hero to me." At the end of the day, I've never met anybody go, "Man, I just wish I could go fishing one more time." No, but I've heard people say, "I just wish I could talk to my child for one more minute." I start looking at my life and leveraging what it is I have, the relationships, the friendships, going, how can I just get one more child to the dentist? Because transformation occurs. A dream starts in the heart. It's audacious. If I leave the world better, if I practice inclusion, if I give myself to a cause, I can change the world. Let me just show you how simple it becomes. Loretta walked up to me one day, this little African-American girl. Her family was one of the first that we'd ever taken groceries to, and she says, "Dear Be Change people." Be change people. Someone had said, "Jason, what are you going to put on the front of your shirt? There's going to be hundreds of cameras and people looking." I'm like, "I don't know, be the change in the world." Isn't that what Gandhi said? So it's too long of a quote to put on our shirt, so we dummied it down to be change. The kids came up and said, "Hey, when are we going to be change run? When are we going to be change? When's be change bringing groceries? Is be change going to be here today taking me to the dentist?" It became catchy. She says, "Be change people, I want to thank you guys for everything you have done for me and everyone else. I just wanted to write this to you guys as respect and to let you know that I care and appreciate what you guys do. So thank you so much for everything you've done. Sincerely, Loretta." Little girl learning what gratitude meant. learning what appreciation meant. So often we read the newspapers and we listen to the pundits and they go, oh, well, these are this and that. It's a child that I'm responsible for. I got to tell you, I walked on campus on cloud 9 because of Loretta's little letter. I kept it in my pocket for probably weeks. It was amazing because there was this one guy I couldn't even get close to. Every time I walked by him, he would stand there and he would look at me like he was just the hardest nail in the whole pile. He would look at me with defiance, and I'd walk by and I'd smile and I'd go, hey buddy, good to see you. And he'd go, watch me walk on by. Next day I walk by him, I go, hey buddy, it's good to see you. And he goes, and he flips me off. I go, okay, good to see you too. I walked on by. I go, at least he didn't say it. Third day I walk by, he looks at me, flips me off, and then says it, and I go, hey, well, at least we're starting to communicate. Fourth day walks by. He looks at me, flips me off, and I go, I know. And I say it about myself. And he kind of smiles. And I go, you know, you're an angry little guy, aren't you? He didn't answer me. Fifth day in a row. The hardened heart of this young man started to crumble because of consistency of a dream being played out with micro goals of just keep on talking to him, keep on talking to him. I walk up to him and I go, hold on. And then I say it to him and he goes, and I go, come here. So he walks over to me and I'm like, this is it. This is the moment. This is it. I go, we're having a breakthrough right here. And he goes, I go, why do you never smile? And he looks up at me and he goes, like, I do smile. And I go, you never smile. He goes, my mouth hurts. So I get closer to him and I have him open his mouth and I look in and I can see his back tooth is so infected and abscessed down to the jawline. He has an infection that is dangerous. So I call my friend. I said, you got to get this kid to the dentist. When I ran the 100 miles, my friend who's a Buddhist called me and says, hey, I like your compassion. I'm a dentist. I'll cover all of the acute care needs of these children. Whenever you have a kid who has an acute care need, I'll cover it. I hadn't found one yet till I found this little guy. I told my friend, put him in the car and take him. The doctor's or dentist's office was in El Dorado Hills. So she puts him in the car, she gets his mom in the car, and the three of them drive to El Dorado Hills. And while they're driving up the hill, he lights up like a Christmas tree and starts going, hey, his mouth is hurting, but he's excited. He goes, hey, and she's like, what? Points out the window and goes, a cow. He had heard about a cow. He'd never seen a cow. He'd never been out of his neighborhood. Drives in the dentist's office. My friend, Dr. Birch, takes care of his mouth, extracts the tooth, gives him some high-level antibiotics because the infection had gone down to the jawline. He was days away from getting very, very sick. On the way home, Dr. Birch says, hey, we've got to figure out how to get this kid taken care of. He's working right there on Eduardo's mouth. Gets done working on his mouth. They leave and they go through the Taco Bell drive-thru. My friend says, hey, Michelle says, hey, what do you get when you go through the Taco Bell drive-thru? Whatever. She goes, no, what do you get? He goes, never been to the Taco Bell drive-thru. Now, folks, I just got to tell you, I go to the Taco Bell drive-thru about 3 times a day. If not 2 McDonald's, 1 I go a lot. But here's a young man who we later determined had never been out of the 4 square miles of his neighborhood. From Highway 50 to Fruit Ridge, from 99 to Stockton Boulevard. That was his entire existence as 12 years old. So I got this harebrained idea, a dream. What would it look like if I started tackling the I nevers of these kids? What if we put them in the car and we did an I never trip? I've never been out of my neighborhood. We gave them a little passport to purpose. And every time we got through one of their I nevers, we stamped it. I've never been out of my neighborhood. We pulled over the Suburbans. We had like 8 Suburbans this first trip, all lined out, maybe 5 with 2 lead cars. And we're like, all right, radio and breaker 1, have everybody stamp, I've been out of my neighborhood. All right, kids, stamp your neighborhood. I've been out of my neighborhood. And kids go, woo! And they stamp their passport. We drive up the highway. We're headed to Oregon this first year. And as we get there, we go, all cars, we're about to go into Oregon. I've never been out of the state. Copy that. Stamp your passports. All the kids are like, woo! We drove over to Coos Bay. They had no idea they were near the ocean. They'd never been there. We pulled up, I got them out, took their socks and shoes off. I go, walk through this desert with me. They have no idea. We go up this sand dune. I know exactly where we are. We stop 3 feet down from the crest of the sand dune, and I know just beyond me is a whole new world for them. As we're stopped at the crest, I said to them, you realize there's a whole world you've never seen. There's high mountains and there's deep oceans, and you have the ability to capture and conquer anything you want if you'll just believe it's possible. Come here, I want to show you something. We walked up, and that line of kids crested that sand dune looking out to the Pacific blue, and I wish you could have been there to see their eyes light up. They were feeling hope. And I will tell you, I will argue to my death that on that day, if that's all we did, I changed the world. My team changed the world. We go, okay, that's enough. Get in the car. They made a high desert run to the ocean. They're like, water! We're like, no! Got the kids loaded in, drove them up to Beaverton, Oregon. Long day driving, pull in to the Marriott Hotel that gave us rooms for $28 because we told them what we were doing. We're about to check into a hotel. Hotel! Everybody's like, yeah, passports! Next day, we took them to Nike headquarters. They had been real good to me in my 100-mile run and sent me shoes and product. And so I said, hey, I've got some kids I want to bring up. They're like, yeah, bring them up. They had no idea what they were bringing. We walked these kids into Nike's headquarters. They sat the kids down in a room like this and started asking the kids about, hey, have you ever designed a pair of shoes? They're like, no, have you ever thought about it? And they started inquiring the kids their opinions. Kids were given this little teeny design matrix, and they were able to design their own little Nikes on paper. Kids were having the time of their life, and then at the very end, my friend at Nike says, we just got to tell you guys, we love your opinion so much, we need to pay you for your services. Here you go. Handed each kid a gift card to the employee store where everything's 50% off. The kids walked in, they're about to get a new pair of shoes. I've never had a new pair of shoes. Stamp it. We stopped at University of Oregon, home of the Ducks, on the way home, and I asked them, I said, how many ever believed college was a possibility? No one in my family's ever been to college. I said, well, then you might be the first one. Let me show you this. We walked them out onto Hayward Field in Oregon. It was amazing, being the voice to the voiceless. And then right there, the University of Oregon green shirts. Amazing how their shirts are lined out on the back. It says, it is possible. You do realize impossible is just an opinion? Who says something's impossible? These kids are looking out there going, man, and I knew we had cracked the hardness of their futures, academic dreams, when one girl named Tazi, she's still my dearest friend now, a freshman in high school, counselor at the college says, anybody have a question? She goes, yep, I do. When can I be a duck? And University of Oregon walked out and handed them all a t-shirt that says, official track cross-country team, Oregon Ducks. We got done with that year, and I could tell you it was a few years ago since then. We've taken them to University of Oregon, USC, UCLA, and we just returned having taken kids from Stanford, of which your very own Rick went on that tour. It was funny. Rick LeBurkin with a bunch of kids from the inner city. It was awesome. He was like their mascot. Did you have a good time, though? Best time of his life. What happens if we just have some I nevers built into us? It's amazing what happens. Here's what a dream looks like. This is all you need to snapshot. Take a picture of, brand it into your mind. It's a 5-phase focus. You see, folks, what happens with every dream? There has to be the conception of a dream. A dream is when it's conceived in the mind, and you may only call it just a seed. When that woman said, I want to go to Paris, somehow, some way she was ready to create that dream. You conceive the dream, but then there has to be a creation process. I'll be honest with you, I never tell anybody what I'm dreaming in steps 1, 2, or 3. Because I'm trying to work through it. It may just be some pizza I ate last night. It's not a good idea. It's indigestion. But I conceive the idea. It's nothing more than a seed. Then, as I conceive the idea, I begin to create a structure for the idea. And then, as I create the structure, I begin to cultivate it. I nurture it. I water it. I massage it. I'm very methodical. It's a crock pot process there, number 3. It's a cultivated strategy where I start to go, okay, if I were to run 100 miles, where would I run? How would I get there? Who would fuel me? Who would hydrate me? Would I have a crew? Is it possible? Hey, am I going to train enough? Those are all the creations. Conceive, I create, I cultivate a strategy, and then I begin to communicate and speak it. I get the 4 or 5 people closest to me who I trust. Now, don't you ever communicate your dream outside of your trust circle first, because people will squash it. I found out later, when I did my 100-mile run, a former friend of mine who was close to me, I found out that privately, without me knowing, because I included him in this 3rd or 4th phase, I let him be part of the inner circle where I talked a little bit about my 100 miles. He took my insights and he went out and started to bet against me. I found out later, about 2 days before my 100-mile run, that he had created a pool, and he started getting people to bet on what mile I would quit on. Be careful who you share your dream with. I'll just tell you, his little office pool was like shoving liquid adrenaline in my arm. I had my one friend tell me about it. I go, every time I start to quit, just say that person's name. And I'm like, you all need an adversary in your life. It's all good. Just don't share the dream with them. And then finally, once you've worked through the conception, creation, the cultivated strategy, and you communicate and speak it, then and only then do we start to circulate and saturate. What we're ultimately doing in the saturation process is we're taking the rock and we're throwing it out and we're letting the ripple effects transcend generations. For I know that right now there is a child who is in one of our I Never Be Changed programs who is going to be an educated advocate someday. I know that within our Be Changed group could just be the doctor who comes up with the cure for cancer or AIDS. I know that the best books have yet to be written because our Be Changed kids have yet to write a book. The best songs have yet to be sung because our Be Changed kids have yet to sing them. Why? Because it's a saturated. So let me tell you what happens. This is where it gets funky. As I wrap this up with a video, I go out to speak at a group just like this. And this lady walks up to me and says, hey, I heard that you ran this 100 miles for these kids. I want to volunteer at your program. So we set up a volunteer tour. She came down, she toured it, she got involved, became a volunteer on Mondays. Then she asked me this question. She says, how is it that what you're doing in Oak Park is not being replicated around the nation? And I'm like, what? You have any idea what we do in Oak Park? I'm just me. I can't do it for Chicago. And she goes, well, you haven't dreamed yet. Now, I will tell you, when someone tells me I haven't dreamed, that's like me going, oh, I'm like Karate Kid, like, don't tell me I haven't dreamed. She's like, you need to get a vision. And then she walked away, and I was like, really? Soccer mom, you're going to tell me I need to get a vision? She goes, well, if you had a vision, you wouldn't be launched and landlocked here in Oak Park. You would have replicated and sustained this thing. I'm like, okay, you go ahead and come up with your vision, and then you come let me know. So she went and got 2 more moms. Now let me just tell you, hell hath no fury like soccer moms with vision. I will tell you, they went and met and brought me back this logo that said, run it forward, where education and endurance collide. I'm like, you've got my attention. She goes, well, here's what I think. She goes, you do realize that Route 66 was at one time the innovation and excellence of Americans' brilliance and genius. But now it is forgotten and abandoned, just like our education system. Using Route 66 as the backdrop, Jason, you and 7 of your friends are going to start in Chicago, the beginning of Route 66, and you're going to run the length of Route 66. Stopping off at underserved schools along the way and planting Be Changed programs, giving kids health care enrollment, dental exams, and bags of groceries. I said, are you nuts? She goes, no, I'm just dreaming. And I went, are you kidding me? She goes, well, just think about it. So I literally thought about it, and I realized the hardest part of it would be getting 7 egomaniacal, stubborn, narcissistic ultra runners, guys who run 100 miles regularly in 24-hour periods, to get on a single bus and get along for any period of time. That would be the challenge. Add to it 3 soccer moms, we've got the Real Housewives of Sacramento, Boston Marathon meets the Amazing Race, meets like Badwater Ultra Race, it's all in one bus. And I'm like, maybe we could do that. Let me talk to my friends. I called 7 friends, and within 2 hours had 7 yeses from ultra runners who would take 3 weeks off work to go on this tour. So there we did, started up in Chicago. 2,448 miles in 17 days. Running, each runner, me and 7 others, running a marathon, 26 miles a day for 18 days straight. I will run 100 miles anytime you want me to, but ask me to do this again? But we stopped off at some incredible schools, and I'll just show you some of the things that happened. Excuse me. Pardon me while I adjust. Just gotta find it. Hope there's audio.
If we want a thing bad enough, we've got to go out and fight for it. Work day and night for it. Give up our time, our peace, and our sleep for it. If all that we do is dream and scheme is about it, and life seems useless and worthless without it. If we gladly sweat for it and fret for it and plan for it and lose all of our terror of the opposition for it. If we simply go after that thing that we want with all of our capacity, strength and sagacity, faith, hope, and confidence, and stern pertinacity. If neither cold, poverty, famine, nor doubt, sickness of pain of body and brain can keep us away from the thing that we want. If dogged and grim, we besiege and beset it, with the help of God, we'll get it.
America, home of the free, land of the brave, a land where innovation was expected and education was excellent. From within her, great thinkers, innovators, and global contributors were born. Once the place where a great education was a guarantee, she has lost her glisten. She's dropped to the bottom 1/3 in education in this industrialized world. Despite some incredible teachers and educators, many schools have been forgotten. Because of budget cuts, they seek survival with limited resource. Children and their future have become the collateral damage of a political war waged between teachers' unions, pollsters, parents, and politicians. Budgets have dwindled, and the achievement gap between the haves and the have-nots have become a chasm. Sadly, unless you live amidst the have-nots, they remain forgotten. Activism is the bridge to the hope-filled horizon of an equal education for every child. Awareness is the only thing that will demand indifference to be silent. Meet Erica. This former Oakland Raider cheerleader lives in an affluent California community where her kids attend a well-funded elementary school. Their campus bustles with parental involvement. Just a few miles away from Erica, in Sacramento's inner city, there are children who have to fight the effects of poverty just to survive. And yet they still long for a better tomorrow. Deciding to volunteer in this environment, Erica saw that unless there was an outside influence, many kids' basic needs would continue to go unmet. Where a child is educated should not determine whether a child is educated.
I saw the effects of this after-school program called Be Change, where the kids were happy and hopeful. Running was being used to challenge kids to press on despite obstacles. They were being taught life lessons, study skills, given access to healthcare and dentistry, even taken on summer field trips to college campuses. 4th and 5th graders were being driven to USC, UCLA, Stanford, and Berkeley. Be Change was doing something.
What would happen if a group of soccer moms decided to do something like Be Change across America? Route 66, the Mother's Highway, it became their backdrop for audacious activism. Erica grabbed some of her friends and a handful of the top endurance runners, and they decided to run from Chicago to California. Shoved in a rock star's tour bus, these ordinary people sought to start Be Change run clubs in extraordinary schools, but in communities that had been forgotten. 8 elite ultra runners seeking to cover nearly 2,500 miles on a non-stop tour from Chicago to California. Soccer moms bringing food to fight hunger, healthcare, hope, a dentist, dreams, all the necessary ingredients to a child's better tomorrow. From communities along a forgotten highway, a child's smile emerged. From the heartland of America, a story emerged. It's a story filled with desolate highways blurred by blistering heat, sandstorms, and impossible conditions of chaos. It was a lesson in life that the human will take you further than human skill.
I'm sorry, you guys.
Don't be sorry.
No, don't apologize.
Way.
The wind is just getting to me.
Man, it was hard. But when you're running up the hill and you feel like stopping, you have to think about the kids. That's the reason. That's the fuel. That's the gas. That's the drive. That's the motivation. Let's go, run it forward.
It's a story of the human spirit being pushed to the brink where sometimes it failed.
So it's about 8 o'clock now, and about 4 o'clock or so today, and talking to Jason, just looked a little pale, looked a little tepid, and we checked his hand for hydration, doing the pinch test, and his skin just stayed up, so that's one indication that somebody's dehydrated, combined with other symptoms that he had of nausea, dizziness, and just general fatigue. At this point, the game plan is just to kind of keep him hydrated. He's had some salt, some electrolytes, and we're just going to continue to monitor him.
It's a story of forgotten families that sometimes win.
We were excited about having Run It Forward here. Obviously, anybody wants to provide food for our families who direly need it. We appreciate that. From visiting with all the folks here today with Run It Forward, what I think I appreciate the most is they believe in kids, they love kids, and they want to do anything they can to help kids.
I'm so excited to have the Run It Forward program stopping through Delray. It's very important. It's an awesome opportunity for our families and our students to learn about education and fitness and providing them with a lot of resources that they need.
A story where unexpected gifts emerge in the most unexpected places.
The next thing I know, Jason is just gone. He left to his grandfather's grave, who he had never met. Who would have thought it was along Route 66?
Started out on this Route 66 run in Chicago to California, and today just decided to take a little detour. I'm in Grove, Oklahoma, and my dad brought me to my grandfather's grave. Never met him. My dad never met him. He died the same year my dad was born. And for whatever reason, I'm just heavy with emotion, and I don't know why. My dad that went to Oak Ridge Elementary School, where Be Change started, and to go from Oak Ridge Elementary School, where Be Change started, and come across, halfway across the United States and end up in the cemetery near the route we're running, and I'm just moved by it.
He would be so proud of you. And I know it would, because I am.
A story where the finish line is only the beginning.
I never dreamed we'd meet such incredible children, families, and teachers. To think that we ran a mile for every child. When I saw the ocean at the finish line in LA, I thought to myself that the best is yet to come.
This is Run It Forward. When my friend sat me down and simply said, "Do you want to run a marathon?" I never dreamed that I would be standing waist deep in Santa Monica's ocean, because now not one program in Oak Park, but 11 programs across America, including Oak Park, have been started. What would it look like in this place today if you were to dream a bigger dream, a singular dream? What would it look like in this place if you were to, in the circle of your private moment, of your intimate thought, of your dream journal, if you were to jot down some audacious things? What would it look like if you would cultivate that and begin to wonder what it would look like? How would the world be made better a place? How would it be that we would practice inclusion, or how would it that we would give ourselves to a cause bigger? You see, I look in this room with a group this size, and I think about the potential and the power-packed power of the people in this room, that you have the ability. I want to tell you from the bottom of my heart, I'm thankful that you allowed me just into your workroom today to share a little bit of my story and my journey. If I never have the opportunity or the moment to speak to you again, I want to promise you one thing. When you look out on the horizon, I will promise you this: I'm going to keep dreaming, because I want to do something for this world to leave it better. Thank you, IMS, for letting me be part of your day.
Outstanding. Thank you, Jason. That was powerful. Those of you, not everybody knows, but Be Change is one of the groups that we helped support this last year through Race for America. When we did that campaign, that program. This is great. I don't know if you realize what's happening to you today, but you're going to go away from here with something different in your life. And thank you. Let's go have lunch.